Well, hello everyone, and welcome to the Econobox Garage. In this week's episode, I'm going to answer a question that I've got quite a bit lately. Why have I called the channel the Econobox Garage when the main car featured so far has been the Bugeye Sprite? To answer that question, I'm going to show you the car that came before the Bugeye. So this is our 1993 Ford Festiva. Originally came with a 1.3 liter single overhead cam 8-valve engine producing at about 65, 68 horsepower, somewhere in that range. And this one has been modified quite a bit from there. It took its first drive in May of 2016. Well, here we are 8 years later. You can see some of the clear coat is starting to peel on it. I have some serious rust showing up down along here. On there, a big crack and some Bondo all across here and across the back. And there's my license plate, which says Festiva, and you'll see why I call it that in a bit here. The front and rear bumpers are from a kit made for the Kia Pride by a company named ATH in Germany. Those are replicas made here, and the exhaust might give you a little hint as to maybe this isn't quite stock. So a bit more rust on this side of the car. And yeah, so that's just a quick spin around the outside. We'll just hop in the car. Now this is far from stock inside. I have seats from a first generation Toyota MR2 on custom brackets. I have an aftermarket steering wheel. And I've added some gauges up here. I've got a boost gauge, which is another hint as to what's under the hood. Oil pressure gauge, an analog clock. I tried to keep any modifications period. I've got a Kenwood stereo, and I have a instrument cluster that's actually originally from the Philippines. None of the Canadian Festivas ever came with a tachometer as an option, and I don't know whether you can see that or not, but the odometer reads 558,000 plus kilometers, and I'll tell you a bit about that a bit later. And I've got a water temperature gauge up along this side. So those are all aftermarket items that I've installed. So I'll just pop the hood. So one of the modifications I've done under here is I've put a hydraulic strut, which replaces the stick that this came with. And underneath the bonnet, this engine is obviously not a single overhead cam or an 8-valve. It's a 16-valve, 1.6 liter, double overhead cam, turbocharged engine out of a 1988 Mazda 323 GT, which was essentially their homologation car for rallying. So it goes from 68 horsepower to about 135 to 150 from the factory, depending on whose figures you're looking at. Another little item you'll see here, I don't have an intercooler, but I do have water methanol injection. I've got an electric fan in here. Now the beauty of the Ford Festiva is it's actually a collaboration between Mazda, Ford, and Kia. So it's manufactured by Kia and sold in North America as a Ford Festiva, and in other markets it's marketed as a Mazda 121 or a Kia Pride. With it being basically a Mazda, a lot of things were fairly straightforward. The turbo engine bolted up to the stock transmission, so I didn't have to change the drivetrain. I did have to custom make the front motor mount here, and the wiring harnesses, there's about 7 wires that cross over between the 2 harnesses. So the engine management is from the donor car, and then the rest of the car, like the lights and gauges and what have you, all run off the Festiva harness. Now, some of the other modifications I've done, I have a Mazda grille from Australia. The headlights and corner lights are from Germany, from a Mazda 121 there. And I find that the European lighting is way better than the North American model. And the front bumper, as I mentioned earlier, it and the rear bumper are a replica of a kit made by ATH in Germany for the Kia Pride. So it's a little closer. It doesn't stick out quite as far. Looks much better than the original one. So we put about 160,000 miles on this car. And then I did have a Festiva prior to this. It was a 1992. And I put a 1.6 liter 8-valve single overhead cam engine in that. That car's been to, that served us for about 300,000 kilometers. And all in all, we've had a Festiva for well over 20 years. And probably have one for a while yet. We have to decide what we're going to do with this one. Whether it's worth trying to fix all the rust or trying to find a rust-free shell from somewhere and transfer all the goodies over. So what I'll do is I'll put the camera up on a tripod and I'll start it up for you. See what it, or hear what it sounds like. Around to the back of the car. Yeah, so I think it has a nice note to it, and it sounds good going down the road. So as I mentioned earlier, this is actually it's our third Festiva. I had one back in 2001 that got written off after being rear-ended by a distracted driver. Then I bought the 92. Did some modified the suspension, put 10 coilovers all 4 corners, put in the Toyota MR2 seats, and did a lot of the physical work or the suspension work on that car. And then when the engine went on that one, and it was rusted even worse than this one is now. So I transferred all of that over to this car back in 2015-16. And also at that time, they put in the turbocharged engine. Since then, we've been into, I think it's 24 or 25 of the US states. This car has been to this car was, and the first weekend in October, every year, there's a big Festiva meet in North Carolina called Festiva Madness. We went there for the first time in 2011 with the previous car. And in 2019, we took this car down. Between those 2 trips and a couple of other road trips, we've been into 36 of the lower 48 states in a Festiva. And we've been into Alberta, Saskatchewan, BC, and Manitoba in Canada with this car as well. There's a few pictures of how the car went together and some of the places it's been over the years. Well, this has been a bit of a different episode. So to answer your question about why Econobox Garage, the Festiva obviously was considered an Econobox, and the idea was the channel was going to be a supplement for the blog at econoboxcafe.com. I'll put a link to that in the description below. And that's where we documented all our adventures and some misadventures with the Festiva and other Econoboxes from that era, from the late 80s, early 90s. But I never really got around to doing any video with the car, with the Festiva. And then in 2017, along came the Bugeye. So I must admit, the Festiva has taken a back seat to the Bugeye over the last couple of years as we've put that together. And the Bugeye has been documented here on the channel over the last 145 episodes. Now, work is still going to continue on the Bugeye. I'll be continuing work on the top that we got started in the previous video. But I'm also going to be looking at different options on where to go with this Festiva or what may be the next Festiva. If you missed a previous episode, I will put a link up in the top corner for you for that. And if you'd like to see where the whole Bugeye journey started, I'll put a link to that video in the bottom corner here. So thanks for joining me. My name is Ian, and this is the Econobox Garage. We'll see you next time.